Welcome back to Livie's Lovelies, your inspirational craft channel, and I'm your host, Fam the Fabulous. For more ideas, inspiration, swaps, and challenges, click the link in the description below to join our craft community, the Maker Exchange, on Facebook. Welcome back to the Lovely Lab. All right, guys, so today I am coming to you with the next video in our gratitude journal series. Today we'll be making our prayer / journal cards for our gratitude journals. Now, if you're new to the channel and you would like to join us, or you want to go ahead and get started, there'll be a card up in the right hand corner that will take you to the playlist for this series, and the first video will outline the supplies that you need, what you'll use your gratitude journal for. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but if not, there you have it. And from that, you will be able to build your gratitude journal along with the rest of us. Now, without further ado, let me just outline some of the things that you'll need. All right, so let's just zoom that in a bit, slide that down. All right, so we're going to create a collage sheet so that we can cut our journal cards from them, and it's going to be a little bit easier than just making one card at a time. So here's what you'll need. You'll need 2 or 3 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, or if you'd like to keep it small and maybe try it a couple of times, a 12 by 12 sheet of scrapbook paper. You also need 2 book pages. They can be coffee dyed or tea dyed for vintage effect, or you can just use plain book pages. Scraps that are left over from your covers and pockets. You'll need 3 patterns or image or illustrations. If you've got scraps laying around and they have like some different patterns, feel free to pull those out, and so that you can use them throughout the collage sheet. And last but not least, you'll need a glue stick. Now, here's some other things that you can use in your collage sheet to make it your own and to give it a little bit more interest. Stamps, decoupage napkins or tissue paper, doilies, labels, magazines, and book illustrations. Very thin fabric if you have it, it's not down here. Or inks, watercolor, distress inks and oxides, paint, colored pencils, and markers. Now, if you're using school glue as opposed to a glue stick, one thing I will caution you is to audition your papers before you lay them down. So in other words, if you have a sheet of paper this size, before you start putting the glue down, go ahead and get a block of a section laid out that you want before you do it, because once you put it down, it's going to be difficult to reposition it with the wet glue without it warping. So the term that they use in the creative community is auditioning, where you put it down to see what fits and how you like what. So this is really the part where you do, it's about your preference and taste level. It's really no format to it. The only thing that you want to stick with is square shapes, because it just makes it easier to layer with as opposed to torn edges. All right, and so without further ado, I am going to show you the cards that I made. Now, when I made mine, I used the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I only ended up with 2. I'll show you. From that, this is what I ended up with. 2 cards. It was, well, let me show you the cards first. So first off, we have this little tag. Where did it go? Did I drop it? Oh, there it is. This one says gratitude, and that's the definition. Now this is from the gratitude journal kit that's in my Etsy shop. There'll be a link below so that if you'd like to purchase it, in which I encourage you to do so. Obviously, the proceeds will go on to help me purchase other things for this channel. But anyways, enough about that. So that is what I made from using the tag from the gratitude journal kit. And this came from the Collage sheet. So it has a little bit of lined school paper on the back, and I stitched around the edge. Now this one is this is Grateful, and this is using the scraps from my, you know what, let me zoom out. There we go. This is using the scraps from the covers. Okay, then I just add a little bit of lace and single stitched around the edge, and there's coffee dye paper in the back, along with the Tim Holtz die cut. Then we have, and on the back of that is the prayer of gratitude. Now, so this is one of my prayer cards that I'll use in my journal. And this again can be found in the gratitude journal kit in the Etsy shop. And this one is, now this one has one of the gratitude quotes found in the kit. And again, this just comes from the Collage, and I used the die cut, and it's stitched around the edges. Now again, in place of stitching, if you want to add some interest, you know, a lot of times the edge, if you darken the edge, it makes the inside of your piece come out more, pop out more. So you can either ink the edge, define it with stitching, or just use some marker around the actual edge of it, or an ink pad. Okay, so this one is Gratitude is Riches, Complaint is Poverty, and that's by Doris Day. This one says Gratitude turns what we have into enough, and that one was by an anonymous. And I backed this on coffee dyed index card, and this one was just backed on some scrap paper that I had left over. All right, and then this one says Thankful, and then there's some ledger paper and some stamped, I have a background stamp, and it's about, I'd say 3 by 5 inches. So I just stamped that on an orange discolored piece of paper, and I used that throughout the Collage sheet. And then there's a little bit of lace here, and I stitched around the edge, and as you can see, there's a little mess up there, but I don't mind it. I actually think these little things like this just give it a little bit more character and interest. And this is another prayer. This is a gratitude card, so you know, it's a journaling card that says I'm thankful for, and you can just slip that into one of the pockets, and there you have it. This one says Blessed, and it has one of the Tim Holtz butterflies, and again from the Collage, and then it has a little bit of lace at the bottom, and then prayer of gratitude. So I actually was only able to get, because of how I wanted the placement, from an 8.5 and 11, was able to get these 2 cards. I think that's how I cut it, something like that. So what I determined from that point was I needed to make my Collage sheet that I started with larger. So I decided, instead of just using an 8.5 by 11, I'll just join them together at the start, and then collage from there. And then it gives me more space to cut from and cut tags from. And then, you know, whatever little scraps is left over, I can always use as a base for clusters, or, you know, a skinny tag, or what have you. But you have a little bit more options when you have the larger space. And to be honest with you, the larger, starting with a larger base is no harder than the smaller. Actually, the smaller is a little bit harder because you have to take into account the space that you have. So it just requires you to be a little bit more intentional. Whereas with the larger, you can you just have more room to play around in. So starting off with 8.5 by 11, these are the 2 sheets. One ends here, the other ends right there. And then once I join them together, it'll be it'll be 8.5 by, I want to say, 21. So these are the scraps that I'm going to be using. Now, what I did to ensure that I had enough space, that I had enough paper, because that's what you're going to want, I just went ahead and laid them down just to make sure that I had enough to cover the area that I am collaging on. And so this, along with, let's see, the smaller scraps, I believe I can make it happen. Now, of course, I'm not going to lay it down just like this, but I'm going to start. I'm going to show you how I get started, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I end. So let me just grab my ruler and glue stick. I got this from Walmart. I ran out of my last ones, and so I had to grab that one on the fly. And it actually is a pretty good glue stick. I've had it before, but I think the last one that I had was, let's use this one that my son scribbled on. The one that I used, no, this one, was like the school glue, Elmer's school glue, and it had the purple tint to it so that you could see where you were gluing, which I actually liked better. But I was in Walmart getting groceries for my dad, and I just didn't have a lot of time to be floating through the store. I think I was actually getting a prescription, so I was over on that side of the store. So anyways, I'm just going to join these two sheets together. And I really need to have some type of paper towel, but I'll do that in just a minute. All right, so of course my handy dandy card. So here's what we're going to do. Starting off with one side, I am going to go ahead and let's see, tear this like so that that can fit there. And then this is just gonna sit right here. So I'll do a few pieces just to give you an idea of how this works. And I'm just, this is cardstock, the parts that I'm using right now, the scrap that I'm using right now, it's cardstock. So with the cardstock you can be a little generous with the glue. You don't have to be stingy, because you actually need to make sure that, excuse me, that it holds. Where did that card go? Good God Almighty. All right, guys, I know y'all see it. All right, just press that in place, and then let's move on to another print. So now we'll go with this one, and truthfully, it does not matter which direction it goes in, unless, of course, you know, that's something that you'd be concerned with. I'm not, and I'm not particularly concerned about that hole, because it'll probably get covered up. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Now, again, if I was using wet glue, I would probably go ahead and tear a few pieces to put down and audition them first before I put the glue down. But because this is, I'm just using the glue stick, I don't have to do that. All right. So now we'll go in with a little bit of dark. That's good. And I won't use too much of this because it's dark. I'm actually going to go this way with it. I'll use this edge. No, I don't want to have to cut. So we'll use this like so. Actually, I'm going to put this here like that. Hopefully, this will be enough. It won't. So, there we go. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tear this edge, glue it down, Actually, let me glue down the thinner paper first, because you don't want it, the overlap sometimes, when it's a thin paper over a thicker paper, the overlap can look a little, it can be a little bit more obvious. So remember that. If you have the ability to layer 2 different paper weights, layer the heavier one over the thinner one, because the thinner one will show all of the flaws. Like this one. And I'm actually going to tear that a bit. Oops, can you see that my nail polish is coming off? Not that I'm that concerned, but okay. But if you use it, if you have colored nail polish on and you're crafting, you might want to put some clear nail polish on over it. Just a little word from the wise. Actually, we're going to go like that. Yeah, we'll go like that. Yeah, we'll go this way. I'll do half of this and then we'll come back. You done, Josh? Oh, okay. Give me just a second. Go on to the next tab and then I'll come over and check that in a minute. All right, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and pull out some of these scraps that I have in the previous one. I'll need to tear that edge a bit. And this one. All right, so I hope this is helping you guys put together your gratitude journal. I hope you are enjoying your process. If you are not enjoying it, you're doing it wrong. I'm just kidding. No, seriously. Remember, this is supposed to be something that you enjoy. So don't let it become too complicated and you get overwhelmed and you start panicking or anything like that. This is for fun. We are creating. But I think that sometimes when we embark on the new things, it can be intimidating. So just try to enjoy the journey. And then once you get to the place where you are feeling more comfortable with it, once you get to the end, you'll start to feel more comfortable about whatever it is that you're doing. Just trust me on that one. You're not going to master it on the first time. Well, maybe you will, but you definitely will be amongst you'll be one of very few. Okay, I'm gonna put this down here. I actually need more color there. No, I'm gonna do this like that. That's a piece of an old book page. Did you go on to the next tab, Josh? Excuse me, guys, while I homeschooled at the same time. Okay, great. We'll use a little bit of this black and white at the top, overlapping the two. And remember, you're going to be cutting up your sheet, so you don't have to put down small pieces because it's going to get caught. Depending on where it gets cut, it'll end up being small anyways. Okay, fear not. I'm gonna have to put something right here because that edge, no, I'm gonna leave that as it is because I probably, nope, I can do that. There we go. Let me just see if I can get something else to cover that. That's tone on tone. I don't want it. Nope. Let's see, what else do we have in here? I'm going to have to pull out a third. Oh, I did have another sheet that I wanted to use in here. Actually, I have two sheets that was still, I hadn't used yet, so perfect, perfect, and perfect. That's this side. Put the black and white down here at the bottom. It's getting a little messy, guys. Alright, so there's that. Do that like that. And that will be essentially half the sheet. Because remember, we started with 5 sheets. So I actually have not used all 5 of my sheets, thankfully. Put this underneath there because there's glue. Me and that card. That red nail polish is everywhere. Big mistake, guys. Don't try that at home. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off before I did my nails in anticipation of the weekend, trying to get it done so that should we step out and want to be fabulous, and I want to be fabulous because the guys don't care nothing about it, that I would be ready and they wouldn't have to wait on me. I plan on giving myself a nice pedicure this evening. We'll see how that goes if time permits, which it usually never does, but which is why it's been on my calendar for me to do all week and it hasn't been done yet. But maybe I'll have time this evening after I go pick up my dad's groceries and do the laundry. There we go. Oh, I need another sheet open. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put this down, help my son with his classwork, finish the rest, and I will be back on in just a moment. Where do I want that? I want that in here with that. Alright. Okay. You guys carry on. If you've started already, go ahead and carry on, and I will be back shortly. Alright, so this is what we ended up with for the collage. It has all of the scraps from the cover and just one extra piece, well, 2 extra pieces that were not a part of my previous part of, you know, the papers that I used. But this was a scrap nonetheless. So on the back of this collage sheet, I have used 1 sheet of coffee dyed paper. And so I'm going to go ahead and let me just turn the slide on. Not that it makes that much of a difference, but just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and glue just to show you how I did it. Now, I will tell you this. Glue stick or no glue stick. The key to gluing large spaces is to do it a little bit at a time. That's really just the key, okay? Otherwise, you end up with something unmanageable, and it's hard to reposition it. Trust me, this is where this comes from. I say that because of this little piece right here. While that doesn't disturb me, that little wrinkling, it may irritate some of you. So I'm using this coffee dye paper. I actually coffee dyed this and laid lace on top of it, so it has a faint lace texture on it. Next time I'll leave it a little longer. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and position this right on here. And remember, for those of you who plan on doing a little stitching around the edges of your prayer cards and journal cards, the good thing about stitching is that it helps to secure your papers down, so you don't have to be as heavy with the glue, or maybe you don't have as much glue. Let me pull this up. Maybe you don't, you know, you're running low on it or what have you. The stitching does help keep it down, so you don't have to use as much. You still need some just to keep it positioned. All right, so I glued a little bit there. I'm going to finish gluing. I'm going to glue it a little bit further. And again, I will be adding stitching to mine, so I don't have to be as giving with the glue right at this point. And this extra layer also, for the backing, I would suggest, if you have used cardstock on the opposite side, to use a thinner paper on the back, because it's going into your journal, and while you do want them to be sturdy, you don't want to add too much bulk to your journals. So right now it looks like I have about 3 to 4 layers in any given spot, and that's probably the most you'll want for these collages. Okay, all right, so there's that. I'm not worried about this part that's pressing down. This is what we consider character. Character, folks. That's why your friends love you, because you're not like the rest. You are unique. Okay? Celebrate your individuality. All right, and so from here, you can decide if you want to create your prayer card or your prayer journal card or prayer card in the shape of a card or a tag. Now, obviously, you might want to wait for that to dry, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that today, okay? I'm just going to move on along. All right, so this one, I'm just going to cut right on down and make that wide. Okay, do the same. Well, actually, for this one, I'll do a narrower one. And then for here, I'll go a little bit wide. And I'll show you why. I'll go a little wide here. These I'm going to turn like so. Some will be cards, some will be clusters. Some might not make it to the cut, make the cut. That one will. All right, so as you can see, what we're ending up with is different size shapes for our cards with different patterns in which you can afterwards just go on ahead and embellish however you choose, or not at all, you know, or as you go along in your journal. So, you know, you have options, people. You have options. Okay, and this will be our last one. So here's what we ended up with out of those 2 sheets of paper, guys. And we can clip the corners, make a tag, journaling tag, a prayer tag, or we can leave them as they are, stitch around the edges. This part is totally up to you, but as you saw in what I showed you earlier, you have the option of creating and adding, you know, die cuts and sentiments and lace and maybe paint or ink to them how you see fit. So anyways, I hope this has inspired you to move forward with your gratitude journal. And if you have not already started, go ahead to the playlist. Well, probably down in the comments or the description. And let's get started. Let's start our gratitude journeys together, people. I said gratitude journeys, and I meant that. Our gratitude journeys will begin in our gratitude journals. Anyways, guys, so all that being said, our next video up will be on the decorating, all right, and finishing up. And if there might be something else in the meantime, in between time, I might pop in for something else. But we also need to decorate our journal. So anyways, until we're back here again on YouTube, guys, stay encouraged, stay blessed, stay creative, and crafting. Bye for now.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe to join the crafting community and be sure to click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Thank you so much for watching. Now stay tuned for more from Livie's Lovelies, your inspirational craft channel. Bye for now.